welcome back to The Breakdown. This is episode 6. And if you're asking yourself what happened to episode 5, I think we're all kind of asking ourselves that. Got former Twins right-hander Cole DeVries in the house, literally in the house, as we are on location at the Alive and Social Network house in South Minneapolis. Cole, welcome to the show. I understand that you've been here before. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was a week or two ago. They had a little music event
Little shindig?
Yeah, in the backyard, and it was really fun. It was a cool, intimate setting, and the music was good. It was an extremely humid night, so that was the only negative on the evening, but outside that, it was good.
Yeah, I heard you got to hobnob with some of the brass of the Alive and Social Network, and you guys were talking before the show, before we came upstairs here to get going. It's kind of a fun, intimate setting in the backyard. You get to interact with the act and talk to the people that are performing, and it's kind of a unique concert setting that you've probably never been to before.
No, it definitely is, and yeah, it's one of those things when you go to any big time concert, whether you're at the Excel or Target Center, whatever. Obviously, there's no way that you can interact, but when you're in someone's backyard, it's real easy to yell at the performer whether you like the song or not, or you want them to play a different one. And so that happened once or twice where they took audience suggestions. So it was awesome.
That's pretty cool, yeah. And so those are the kind of events that we have going on at the Alive and Social Network. Keep up with that at Alive and Social on Twitter. Easy enough to figure out. So if you're wondering what happened to episode number 5, we're all kind of wondering what happened to episode number 5. We do have a new board op today. His name's Aaron, and he's doing a fantastic job. Patrick had recorded episode 5. If you haven't heard, I had secured a pretty cool interview with Twins general manager Terry Ryan, and due to some technical difficulties, it is still in flux. I do believe we're going to be able to deliver the final product, which is great because it was a really good interview. Terry gave me 40 minutes of absolute gold, so I'm looking forward to putting that out there. So we're a little bit out of sorts, a little bit out of order, but 6 is going to come before 5, and that's just fine with us, I guess. But anyway, the one thing that we always like to get out of the way first, actually, let's put that on the table for a second. Cole and I have been working on something in the last couple of weeks, and I definitely don't want to say I'm any part of the focus, but Cole has been doing instructional videos, and I've been lucky enough to be along for the ride at a couple of different parks in Minneapolis. And it's not your typical instructional videos. In fact, Cole, I'll let Cole fill you in. It's for a company called AirViews that I believe is still working on their launch. I think they launched their official website in September, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's maybe the first or second, because last time I looked on the website, that was a couple days ago, and they said that they're going to be launching it in 6 days. So right around the beginning of September, immediate beginning.
And what exactly makes these different than any other instructional videos that you'll see anywhere else?
Yeah, so with AirViews, and that is AIRVUZ.
You can find them on Twitter as well.
Yep, Twitter, Instagram, airviews.com.
That Instagram is going to be cool.
Exactly, yeah. And so the thing that is really fun and interesting about it is all drone based and drone shots, photography, video. And so with these instructional videos, everything that we're doing is shot with a drone. So we can get some really cool, interesting angles with how they're panning or different perspectives that you normally can't get with, or that I should say are much more difficult to get with handheld cameras.
I think people get a little freaked out when you say drones, but it's just, helicopters. Basically, it's just getting aerial views of that first day we played knee catch for what felt like forever.
Oh, it was like a half hour straight.
People who aren't familiar with that, you just down on one knee, throwing the ball back and forth. And then the last one we did earlier this week was long toss, which is quite a difference from knee catch.
Definitely.
Just kind of ramped it up right away. And so that was actually, I tweeted it and it kind of felt like a humble brag, but I got to see your changeup in action. And man, when they say pulling the string, you literally can see how a big leaguer throws a changeup in the snap that it has on it. So there have been a couple fun videos, I have to say, and I think there's quite a few more in the works. Is that true?
Yeah, so we're, kind of right now I have tentatively, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 mapped out in my head, and we'll kind of see where we can go with that. With my expertise, I don't want to be talking about things that, fielding and whatnot, and people are going to be sitting there looking, well, this guy pitched, what's he doing? And giving me instruction on fielding.
Some base running instructions.
Yeah, right. Well,
you had no plate appearances in your entire professional career.
Zero.
Even the minor leagues, right?
I was so disappointed. Well, in the minor leagues, you don't ever hit. Yeah,
so never. Okay.
Yep, you always play with American League rules.
Sure.
And so, but there's that, and then something that we're also talking about doing that I really enjoy is doing a series of kind of home improvement videos or home improvement how-tos or things to look at when you're buying a prospective home, because that's kind of my other half of things I do, are renovation flip houses, whatever you want to call them. And so we'll be doing a whole series, Shot with Drones, again, on what to look for, how to do certain things. And so, yeah, there's going to be both sides. And yeah, I think I've seen some of the first one that we shot, some snippets, and I think it looks pretty good. I was fairly impressed.
Yeah, I have to admit, when we were going to do this audio thing yesterday, and we ended up getting pushed back to today, you and I ended up talking about houses for a lot longer than I ever would have expected. You got to walk through today, and you're working on flipping a house that's supposed to be off your hands here pretty quick, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, taking possession of it today, and then hopefully we can get it back on the market in about a month and a half. Nice little starter home for whoever ends up buying it in St. Louis Park.
Yeah, that's something else too. We might be able to get into a little bit more as we move forward. Now, for what people are probably actually listening for, which is a little discussion on the Local 9. You know, we had originally planned to broadcast yesterday, and then we could have talked about a 6-game winning streak for the Twins. Instead, the catwalk got in the way of a Twins, maybe not a Twins win, but that home run would have provided, now that we're looking back at it retroactively, the tying run of the game as the Twins fall 5-4 to Tampa Bay, fall to 65 and 62, half game out of that last wild card spot. Cole, I think you said you had watched the game, you had seen the Sano, what would have been a home run. And what were your thoughts from when you saw that? It just kind of blow your mind how far that ball could have gone?
Oh, for sure. And I knew someone was going to do something because who was Smiley, I believe, was pitching.
Yeah, Drew Smiley.
Yep, and he was leaving a lot of fastballs.
At like 89, 90 miles an hour.
Middle.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, Buxton had a tough time catching up to those. But Miguel Sano said, and just hammered the pitch. And I remember when I saw him swing, I instantly thought to myself, oh boy. And then the camera angle changed and I couldn't even see the ball. And then they were talking about it ricocheting off the catwalk up there, with which I don't even know how high that is. And it's probably about, I would say, 2/3 to 3/4 of the way into the outfield.
Right.
And I mean, just an unbelievable hit.
Yeah, I mean,
unbelievable.
I think you're looking at a 430, 440 blast if that lands, if the trajectory goes true to form. You know, instead settles for a double, and it's kind of frustrating that a big league team plays in such a building. But Twins, anybody affiliated with the Twins can't really complain about facilities having looked at the Metrodome. Do you get visions of the Metrodome when you look at Tropicana Field?
It does. It looks really similar. And while I never pitched in the big leagues at
either of those parks, I suppose.
The Dome. But because I went to University of Minnesota, we played almost all of our regular season games in the Dome. So I have pitched quite a few innings there. And it's kind of funny, during one of our games that I was actually pitching, we had a situation kind of similar. I forgot who I was pitching against, but the batter hit a foul ball, a foul tip, and it actually went up and hit one of the speakers. And the speakers are in play, and the ball came back into play and caught it for an out. And it was hilarious because the umps had no idea how to call it. And our manager at the time had to come running out there and explain to him. And so it was kind of funny. And I empathize with Sano last night that was unfortunate. And luckily no one caught the ball, because that would have been even worse. But
well, the other thing was he just kind of walked off of second base too.
Oh, I saw that. They could easily take him out.
If they'd have been paying attention. And it's not a ground rule double. It's a play it as it lands.
Yeah.
So again, play it as it feels like you're playing arena rules baseball, like arena rules football too. You know, where it's just like pinball or something. You know,
which the thing that's so ridiculous about that hit is, if there was no catwalk there, that thing may have hit the ceiling. I mean, I couldn't see the trajectory, but just listening to Bert and Dick talk about it,
yeah,
they said it looked like it was still climbing at that point. So it may even hit the ceiling. If not, it would have so easily gone out. That's not even funny. And the fact that he could have gotten tagged out and almost kind of did is almost laughable to me.
Yeah, it's just like an umpire's discretion thing is what I think it should be. Is, you know, was the ball going to leave? you already put so many things up to umpire's discretion, beginning and ending with the strike zone. Why can't the four guys get together and say, look, that was going to get out of the ballpark, excuse me. Give the guy the home run. I don't know. I mean, I guess you want to have conforming rules, but based on trajectories and now with all the data we have, StatCast, exit velocities, I think you can pretty easily determine how far that ball would have gone, and it might have landed back in Tampa rather than in St. Pete.
Oh, geez, no kidding.
Yeah, I think it's frustrating for the Twins, I'm sure, but to come off 6 straight wins, so to go 6-1 against Baltimore and Tampa, two of the teams that you're competing against directly for that last wild card spot. I think you can concede one of the first ones to either the Yankees or the Blue Jays. Maybe it's too early to do that, but I kind of consider these more divisional games than actually playing the Royals right now, where you're not really directly competing against the White Sox or Indians. Who you'll see the White Sox here again pretty soon. But do you kind of get that vibe too? Like it's more important maybe to beat the Astros coming into town today, Baltimore, Tampa Bay, the teams that you could be competing against for that wild card because you've already kind of conceded that division crown to Kansas City.
I 100% agree. Yeah, like you just said. Kansas City is just running away with it. Unless their whole team gets injured somehow.
What are the odds of that?
Yeah, there's almost no way that they're going to lose that lead.
13 games. I don't know. Has anybody blown 13 games in a month? The Mets a few years ago blew probably like 8 games or something like that. But 13, yeah, just not going to happen. I mean, this is a team where if they go, let's see, they got to go 22-13 the rest of the way to finish with 100 wins. That's definitely possible.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you get to a point where you have nothing to play for and you kind of go in the tank, let some other guys get some playing time in September. I don't see that happening. So.
No, but I completely agree that these games where they're playing against a wild card opponent are so much more important than anyone against really people in our division right now, because it's kind of Kansas City has lockdown on that first place. And then there's kind of us who are fighting for the wild card position, and second place, unless the Twins do something really weird, is kind of ours also.
How do you feel about this bullpen right now? Obviously, it's been in flux with Glenn Perkins battling, I think, a couple different issues, but Jepson's filled in admirably in the back end. I wrote a piece for Cold Omaha on 93X on Monday, so 3-4 days ago, about how, again, the bullpen's not going to fool you into thinking it's the Yankees or the Royals, but when you get everybody where they're supposed to be, and from the back, Perkins, you got Jepson, you got May, and you have, who am I missing now? Kotz. Mm-hmm. You got guys into roles. Casey Fiend becomes your de facto like 6th inning guy, where his uber ridiculous control plays into your hands a little bit better. You want strikeout guys in the back of the game, but a guy that's not going to walk anybody earlier in the game if you need to get out of a situation is good too. If you can start slotting guys into roles that are a little bit more finite, again, I still don't like having Trevor May in that bullpen, but he's been fantastic. You can't argue that. So like May, Jepson, Perkins at the back end, that's about as good of a back three as they've had for quite a while. And I think it's a back three you could go into the playoffs with and feel pretty comfortable. How do you feel about that?
For sure. If everyone in that bullpen is firing all cylinders, I think they're going to be good to go. And it's that case with any bullpen. If all of the moving pieces aren't moving together in unison, that's when you always run into trouble. And so while they don't have any wow guys
they absolutely don't.
Yeah, in the pen like Kansas City does. Kansas City's got a couple of them. But all of our guys are good, and if they're pitching well, we're going to get a lot of productivity out of them.
Yeah, it's something to keep in mind. The MLB average, when I checked last, is like 8.4 strikeouts per 9 innings for a reliever. So that's the average. So you should have a number of guys above and beyond that if you're going to be an average big league bullpen. I think Tampa Bay, who the Twins just faced in this last series, or something like 8.6. The Twins are down like 6.6. They have 0 relievers above that 8.4 mark. So nobody even above average. Glenn Perkins, 8.2. I looked at Jepson recently. Why can't I find it here? But he was right around that mark. He's at 7.8, so he's regressed a little bit too. So
but that's something that doesn't surprise me at all, because the Twins have, at least for the whole time that I was playing with them, never been an organization that harped on strikeouts.
They want strike 1 and 2, but they don't care about strike 3.
Yeah, well, and it's one of those things. If you get strike 1 and 2, and then you make a quality pitch on that strike 3, it's not, but it's almost as good as getting a strikeout because if you're making a quality pitch, it's put in a location where the guy is not going to be able to hit it hard, and that's when you get your weak fly balls or your ground outs. And so that's kind of always been the hallmark of the Twins is more control over power and pizzazz.
But I feel like if you were to build an entire group around guys that don't strike anybody out, you'd probably want the secondary thing to be grounders, right? I mean,
definitely.
And that's not the case either. So it's kind of a weird mix. They don't walk anybody. Casey Fien, again, we mentioned this, basically the beacon of the Twins' philosophy not to walk anybody. 4 walks, all unintentional. So 4 walks in 50 innings.
Wow.
He's got the second lowest walk rate among relievers with 30-plus innings. I checked that out the other day. So he's not striking anybody out. The cutter has become a little more hittable than it has been in years past. But again, if the walks are down, you can kind of live with the lower strikeout rate. But 4.9 strikeouts per 9, that's still not a late inning guy.
That was I think that's significantly under where I was when I was pitching.
I think you were like 6 something.
Woo! There we go.
So, and as a starter too, as a reliever, you got that natural bump because your stuff plays up. So yeah, no, I mean, Fiend's a bulldog out there. I'm not going to say anything bad about him.
Yep, he's got a mentality, or he's a little fireball when he walks on that mound, and he's about ready to kill anyone at any point. That's kind of the mentality he has, and I like it.
Yeah, no kidding. Are you surprised that they're getting most of the production from young guys? I mean, Kurt Suzuki, MIA most of the season. Joe Mauer, same thing. Brian Dozier's had his second half. I don't want to call it swoon because that's kind of mean, but last year he faded pretty hard in the second half. It's been pretty similar this year too. But the guys who have really picked it up, Eddie Rosario, Aaron Hicks, who's on the DL but should be back soon, and Miguel Sano, it seems like it's been those guys. And then maybe a pop-up contributor every night, whether it's Shane Robinson, Eduardo Escobar, who's just red hot right now.
Oh, God.
And needs to be your starting shortstop at this point. Have you been surprised that their key contributors have been the young guys, or is that kind of what you expected?
I knew that a couple of those guys were going to do well or okay, but I think most of them have far exceeded where I thought they were going to play out at this year. And it's really refreshing because that is the guys that you were just talking about are the guys who are going to be here for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, and with some hopefully a little bit longer.
Yeah, hopefully
years.
like 10 or 12 with Sano.
Yeah, and so that's really promising because those are the guys that you're going to have to really count on, and they should, you never know, but they should get slowly better each season that they're up there and get more comfortable with the situation, all the extenuating circumstances that you have to deal with when you're in the big leagues. And so I think it's really exciting and really promising.
So what would you do with Irvin Santana right now?
Oh, God.
I tweeted this out, and
Irvin Santana. No, what about also Nolasco? I mean,
yeah.
if you can talk about a bigger bust between the two,
that's true. And I mean, just for September, because Nolasco is probably on the shelf for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
With Irvin Santana, and I tweeted this, you can't use him in October, even if you get there. He's actively hurting your chances to make it to October. Do you ever just put him in the bullpen? Just say, hey, look, 1 inning at a time. Let's figure this thing out, and then we'll get to the end of the season. You'll be back in rotation the next season. Is that too big of a slap in the face to a big money guy? If it is a big slap in the face, does that then get counteracted? Because, look, dude, you were suspended for half a year. You kind of got to do what we want. At what point do you say Trevor May gives us a better chance to win, or anybody else? I mean, Jose Barrios gives us a better chance to win every 5th day than you. 6.05 ERA, 5.4 strikeouts per 9, a whip of 1.53. So he's essentially allowing 3 base runners every 2 innings. At what point does that become a thing you start thinking about where it's not permanent? It's not like Ramon Ortiz or Sidney Ponson where you got a guy on a 1-year deal and you just got to get whatever you can out of him. You got to get this guy right because it's not only the rest of this year, but it's the next 3 years or 4 years if you get that option exercised.
Oh, yeah, and he's getting so much money right now, too.
And shelled. The fastball has like a 1,200 OPS on it. The slider's fine. The changeup's fine. The fastball's just getting blasted. And the velocity is good. It's not like he's hurt. I mean, maybe he'll have that, that DL stint. People can't see me doing kind of the air quotes. But it looks like he's healthy. He's throwing 92, 93 like he always is supposed to. at what point do you just change it up a little bit?
I think the way that you approach a situation without getting him irritated at you or, feeling bad about the organization and how he's getting treated, is you got to have a sit down talk with him and talk real frankly. And, I don't know him, so, I've only talked to him a couple times, but he seemed like a reasonable guy. And you got to sit down and say, hey, nothing about this season is going the way any of us want. What do you think we should do to get you back on track? Do we need to kind of just put you on the shelf for the rest of the season? Right. Do we need to just throw some bullpens for the next week and a half to hopefully get that fastball location?
Spot in the rotation?
No, get him out. Get someone else in there.
Okay.
Just so he, because I think right now it's also kind of getting to that point where it's going to be a little bit of a mental issue where you start kind of wondering if you've lost it for the time being.
Even as a 10-year vet, the guys will have that kind of doubt.
I never got to that point, so I don't know. But everyone's
human, though.
Yeah, everyone's the same, and it's happened for long enough where a rookie guy might after 2 starts be questioning themselves. Where him, I mean, what we're getting on
10, I think.
9
or 10,
and so that's a significant amount of time. And so I think you just have to have that frank conversation and kind of come to a collective agreement on what the best route is for him to get his head right, get that fastball location right, and then see if it's reasonable to move on at that point.
Yeah, and you have to keep in mind, too, this is a team that's going to need every win the rest of the way, no matter how they're going to come, whether they're
for sure.
ugly wins, cheap wins. You need every one of them because it's going to be a wild card decided not only by that game 163, but by probably a game or 2 in the standings. I think Paul Molitor is the right kind of manager to have that sit down with him too. So that's a good thing to have too. I think he's got that wisdom to move on to Irvin and say, look, this is where I'm at. Where are you at? Let's come up with something. So that's a wrap for the first segment. When we come back, we will talk a little bit about big leaguers playing video games and what stats Cole likes or hates for pitchers. So join us in the second segment.
The term foodie can sometimes come across as a tickle pretentious. BT and Lydia are here to demystify the term and reclaim it for the sake of good food. Their weekly podcast brings in fellow foodies and culture creators from the Twin Cities to talk about all things food. Find this duo only on the Alive and Social Network.
3rd Street Brewhouse, built on a perfect site in Cold Spring, Minnesota, combining the state-of-the-art brewing facility with exceptional water. Hello, did we mention Cold Spring, Minnesota? They have a dream team of world-class brewers, resulting in unprecedented crafted beers. The core styles of Bitter Black IPA, Lost Trout Brown Ale, and Rise to the Top Cream Ale are intriguing yet satisfying. And look forward to seasonal and specialty beers. Nothing fancy, no fuss. It's all about the beer at 3rd Street Brewhouse.
Against Michigan to bring us in. This was the walk-up for one of my favorite all-time Twins. Never a teammate of yours. You kind of probably just missed him. He was a Twin twice, including most recently last year. Do you have any idea who I'm talking about?
Oh, God, now you just really threw me last year. No, I have no idea.
Jason Kubel.
He was with the Twins in the minor leagues last year? Or
didn't he start the season with the Twins and as a DH for like a month or so?
You know what? Now that you're saying,
easily forgettable though.
I forgot about it.
Yeah, so he started off real hot and then cooled off, and so I've always kind of liked Jason Kubel. I've always kind of liked that song, and it's kind of cool to see those two things come together.
For sure.
I thought, well, we'll bring in the second segment with a blast from the past. A couple of crazy things going on. We won't dive too deep into them on the MLB landscape, but the Mariners have fired their GM Jack Zurienchik. I'm sure I'm not saying that right, and have sent down catcher Mike Zunino. If you don't know much about Zunino, he was picked with the draft choice immediately after Byron Buxton. and as a catcher was probably someone the Twins were considering pretty hard. Coming out of Florida, big league ready catcher was the belief. He's hit 193 in his big league career. A little bit of home run power and some really good framing. Everybody loves his defense, but I don't know. 605 OPS, it's pretty hard to hide it behind that defensively. So crazy things going on out in the Pacific Northwest. Moving on, we are nowhere near the Pacific Northwest, but I did want to get into a couple things that are probably big league specific. The first one I wanted to ask is, do big leaguers play video games? And the reason I ask is we'd kind of discussed this while we were shooting those videos, and you'd actually gone in a little different direction than I had anticipated, but it was definitely interesting. And you were talking about some guys like kind of hanging out in like one room and playing or something like that, or
Yeah, so something that happened a couple different times is all of a sudden I saw 3 or 4 guys show up in the clubhouse for a road trip with their Xboxes. And I was kind of sitting like, oh, okay, well, what are you guys going to do with those? What's the deal? And I come to find out that depending on the road trip, I mean, it didn't happen every time, but sometimes the guys would get the LAN cables or the Ethernet so they could link up 3 or 4 systems together through 2, 3, or 4 of the hotel rooms. Mm-hmm. And so they'd have a big, Halo kind of party where they were all playing against each other kind of things. And so, yeah, so that happened from time to time. And, it was a good way to interact with your teammates and do something that's kind of fun that's not related to anything that has to do with our job. And so...
Yeah. A lot of trash talking going on for that kind of thing?
Oh, I'm sure there was, yep.
So what about you? I think you said you were kind of a video game guy, or?
Yeah, I like playing video games. I like a lot of the first-person shooter ones. Sure. Kind of like a little bit of the futuristic ones. What was it? Destiny was the last one that I played. If anyone's a gamer, they know what that is.
They do. I'm sure I've seen commercials for that, and so it was kind of interesting that was the first thing that came to mind, because what came to my mind is I've played baseball video games since I was about 7, 8 years old, and as games got a little more customizable, like in 1995 they started making games where you could trade players. It used to be just you were stuck with the roster, and then you get into like the 2000s, the late 90s with PlayStation 1, you could create your own players. And so one time at a birthday party we were playing like MLB 99, and we each created our player with our own names, and so then we were playing like through the season, and every time your player came up, that person got to hit. And so like when I think about it, it's like, it'd be kind of cool to create a player with my name and attributes. But with big leaguers, the game's pre-created for you. Do guys kind of get into that, I want to play as myself, especially maybe you play as Cole DeVries and throw a no-no or something like that?
I never have. Which one am I on? I'm on, I think, MLB,
must be MLB The Show.
2K13.
Like 2013 or something.
Yeah, so something like that. Because I remember before that season, whoever the company is that owns or writes that game, they had a couple of us, and I was one of them, sit down in the chair to digitize our faces.
Nice.
And so I got to do that, and I got to get online and buy a copy of that, because, I mean, it's cool that you're actually on a video game. I've never played with myself. I know some of my friends.
Be careful with the phrasing there.
Yeah. Let's rewind that, but move on.
Never played as yourself. There you go. A little better.
I've never played as myself in a video game. I know a couple of my friends have, and oh God, that just sounds terrible. And so when that came out, they're like, dude, did you know that you're on this game? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, yeah, I kind of did, because they took my face shots and everything, but I haven't actually played the game, and so I gotta check it out one of these days.
Did you feel like a lot of guys though did play a lot of baseball games too, or was it not? I think people think that baseball players play a lot of video games, and that naturally they'd want to play a lot of baseball video games, but maybe you're just so sick of baseball because your life is baseball that maybe you'd want to unplug from that.
I noticed when I was playing that there are guys that are on two sides of that. The one side that I was on is that because kind of your life is baseball, that when I wasn't at the field, I didn't want anything to do with baseball. I needed to decompress. I just, I didn't watch it, anything. And then there's guys on the other side that, everything they do is living baseball. Sure. And so those guys I'm sure played more baseball video games, or where the other side, just because, we do enough stuff that's baseball oriented that they just kind of wanted to remove themselves from that.
Did it bum you out that you had ever reached a point where you needed to unplug from baseball? Like, I mean, when you look at baseball from my standpoint, it's like, man, baseball, everything, that just sounds great. But then you start living it, and it's like when you do something for work, there's a level of like awe that's stripped away. Like for me, going and hanging out in the press box at Target Field was cool for like the first 30 or 40 times. Now it's like, yeah, this is cool, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to do this, but it's not like, it's not like going to the Metrodome for the first time, which I'm sure that wears off pretty fast too. Did it bum you out that at some point you're just like, yeah, baseball's kind of work?
No, not really, because honestly, once I kind of got to college, I kind of had...
I could have been work by then.
Yeah, I kind of had that mentality that... And in college, baseball is work. Or, at least at Minnesota, I think at most D1, D2, at most college programs, it is, because you have to go to lifting. You have to be at practice. You have to travel on the weekends. There's all these have-tos, and it basically kind of is your part-time job, or, almost full-time at that point with how many hours you're putting in. And so for me, kind of right then, it almost started becoming a job. So when I got into pro ball, it really wasn't that much different, and I always kind of viewed it as a job. So I never really got the womp womp, situation where it's like, oh, this is actually my job now, and I'm kind of getting sick of it. So,
well, and I'm sure there's a pretty nice little reward at the end of every 2 weeks or whatever that makes it all worth that work.
In the big leagues, in the minor leagues,
well,
no, there is not.
Yeah, that's true. My sense was when I played Division III that it was like a full-time job in season. I kind of got the idea that maybe Division II is full-time in season, part-time off season, and then Division I is just full-time all season long. Because even when you're not playing, I'm sure you're working on something, aren't you, as a Division I player? Or are you able to unplug a little bit?
I had one season when I was playing college ball that was kind of or I should say one summer. So
was that the Cape Cod summer?
No, that was my sophomore. I just completely took off the summer.
Oh, okay. You went opposite. I was thinking it might be one summer where you had to be full out, but it was mostly full out every year except the sophomore year.
So my freshman season I played in the Northwoods League for Mankato, and then sophomore summer I should say, completely took off. And then my junior, that's when I went out to the Cape Cod baseball league out there. And so, yeah, for me, the majority of my college, my summers, it was basically a year-round job in some aspect.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. That it sounds like so it does make sense that it feels like work much earlier than the big leagues and the minor leagues. If it doesn't feel like work, it should because of the pay and the amount of work that goes in.
For
it's
sure.
Certainly not commensurate, and that's true. I wanted to get back on the video game thing just one more time before we move on to something else. And that was, did you ever see players talk trash about video game attributes? Like Joe Mauer ripping on somebody because their contact was lower than his or something like that? Or
I never heard anything about
maybe
that.
Maybe not him. He probably wouldn't even, he's in the commercials. Who knows if he even plays?
Right. No, I never heard anything about that. It's actually kind of funny, and it wouldn't surprise me if guys were playing the game against each other and they were playing as themselves, if something like that would arise, but I never heard about that one.
Yeah, that does sound like it would be something that would go on, especially maybe with younger guys too, that are a little more time on their hands between games. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to ask you in this segment before we move on to the listener submitted questions, we did get a bunch, and again too, if you want to contribute to that, feel free at any time to send tweets to me at Brandon_Warren. I don't know if you want to be that open to people sending suggestions to you, but if so, where can they find you on the Twitter machine?
At the Cole DeVries.
And again, you are too a very active person on Instagram.
Yes,
What's your
you
handle
are.
there?
You are way more active than me on Twitter. So if someone asks a question to me, it might be a day or so before I get to it.
I'm trying to be increasingly less active, though. I move some things around. I'm trying to tweet just a few times a day. Tweet less, say more. But he's looking at his phone. He's going to prove me wrong.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, that's always a profound way to do it. I'm actually pulling up my Instagram.
So you know your handle. Yeah,
I can't
I don't even
remember.
know. I think my handle's the same as Twitter. I try not to use Instagram too much. It's mostly just cat pictures. So people probably just hate that. But you know what?
So my Instagram is Cole DeVries 38.
And what's the third? No, I'm just kidding. I know the 38. So
It's my number when I
There you
created
go.
it when I was playing.
exactly.
So
anyway,
yeah.
So yeah, if you guys have anything that you want us to answer, find one of us on. Well, find me on Facebook. Find one of us on Twitter, and we'll try get it answered. We have like 10 or 11 questions, so we're not going to get to all of them. But first, you have to answer all my questions because I'm your co-host.
Let's do it.
So when you were playing, or even now, is there any statistics? It could be for pitchers, it could be for hitters, but I'm sure you're going to skew towards the pitching side.
Definitely.
That you did or did not like. I know, Glenn Perkins is a
He's a
stat geek,
huge stat rat.
and then there's
yeah.
some guys who just prefer to say, I got the W.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I tried to pay attention as little as I could to my stats because I always felt like,
So you don't know how many home runs per 9 innings you allowed?
oh, I knew I know because I was giving them up, but I don't know per 9, but I know it was more than it should have been. Let's just put it at that. But so I'm not real adverse on all of the pitching stats. The ones that I kind of liked and didn't like, and I would say I would pay the most attention to is the wins losses, because I think they're kind of stupid, the wins loss, because I can go out there and give up 8 runs over 5 innings. Well, if my team scores 10 and they hold it, I get the win, and I pitch terrible. And so, and then there's also the other side of it that the defense behind me could have played absolutely abysmal, but I pitched really well, and I still get the loss. So I feel like the win-loss for a starting pitcher isn't always indicative of how they pitch that game. And so that's why I never really like those, but I know that that's what you get paid on. I mean,
Sure.
anyone who's getting right around 20 wins a season, you're going to have a hefty contract.
Yeah. What I hate about it, too, is let's say you pitch 8 innings, you're up 2-0 when you leave, and your reliever gives up 3 runs.
Yeah.
You pitched well enough to win. You didn't have anything to do, not only with the 2 runs that scored for you, because you're not, as an American League pitcher, you're not hitting. Even as a National League pitcher, they're really not hitting either. So you have nothing to do with the offense. You have nothing to do with the guy who took over after you, and you pitched well enough for when you didn't get a win. Jose Quintana, somebody you faced in the big leagues, I think a couple times, in the last 3 years has won like 9, and 6 or 7 games, despite being one of the very best left-handers in the American League. Just serendipitously has pitched in games where he gives up 2 runs and the White Sox score 1, or something where no decision, he pitches well enough to win, they score late against someone's bullpen. And so there's a hashtag that was Kill to Win that was started by Brian Kenny of the MLB Network, and he's just saying, look, the wins don't tell you really anything. You can't compare 2 guys, because if you win 11 games and I win 9 games, but you're on a last place team and I'm on a second place team, it still doesn't mean that you were better than me or I was better. Like, it just, there's no correlation.
And that what you just spoke to is kind of one of the things that happened to me my first season up, is that I left the game in 5 or 6 games where we had the lead and the bullpen gave it up, and I think that year I had 5 wins. So if those would have
5, yep.
yeah, so if those would have held true, I'd have been 10-5 with pitching 2/3 of a a season. Or I mean, actually, no, I was
About a
I was-
half.
Yeah, because I was injured the last
16 or
half.
16 starts, 17 appearances, 87.2 innings is, I mean, it's roughly half of what a big leaguer would do if they're
So
qualified.
10 wins in half a season, you're doing all right.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's kind of one of the reasons why I don't really like the win-loss. The one I do like that I find interesting is the ERA, because while it's not 100%, it's a pretty good barometer of how well you're doing at that time or over the span of the season. And it's kind of hard to really skew that one.
If you're going to go with record, how about this? Team record in games pitched, because you're already talking about a fact where you already know you have limited control of that game. So why not just see if the guy's keeping you in games? You know what I mean?
And but that one's also tough because
It's extremely skewed no matter how you slice it.
yeah, because if you are giving up just 1 run in every one of your starts, but your team isn't scoring any runs, you're still getting losses in every one of
So
those.
you appeared in 17 games. You made 16 starts in 2012. What do you think the team's record was in those 16 starts? You were 5-5.
Oh God. I'm gonna say.
Don't overthink it.
I'm gonna say. I'm gonna just go with we're even. We're about even.
8-8, perfect. Yeah.
Yes.
See? So yeah, I mean, maybe your record was indicative, but if you're remembering that you left the game ahead, you have a stretch from early July, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, no decisions. And
Yeah.
it looks to me, just at first glance, like you pitched, 4.03 ERA, and you were 0-1 in that stretch. The Twins were 2-5. 4.03 ERA is just right around what you did for the season. So that stretch indicates basically how you pitched all season, but you don't have any wins or losses, one loss to show for it.
Yeah, exactly. So there we go. So those are kind of those. The other ones I think are kind of fun to look at is strikeouts per 9. Those kind of
easy to calculate.
Yeah. Those averages. I think those are kind of interesting.
So have you ever looked at like FIP, like FIP, anything like that?
I don't even know what that is.
So on Fangraphs, which is a place I write every single week, I'm actually supposed to have a column up there in an hour that's going to be late, but tough luck there. They basically do like ERA estimators based on things the pitcher can control, which is home runs and strikeouts. And so if your ERA was 4.11, well, it was in 2012, FIP says you pitched more like a 4.90. xFIP says 4.72. So maybe you won't like them because they said you're a little bit on the lucky side. But but they basically say, a pitcher with X number of strikeouts, X number of walks, X number of grounders, X number of home runs. They throw it into this big formula and then say, oh, did you outperform your peripherals or did you underperform?
Interesting.
And then there's guys who can consistently outperform their peripherals, like Hector Santiago of the Angels, who throws like a screwball, and Matt Cain of the Giants, who has a crazy big contract. Actually, he's been hurt. Another guy that outperforms them. So they're not like the be-all, end-all, but there's statistics that have kind of come around in recent years that have said, hey, there might be a little more to ERA than what meets the eye. The other thing that's kind of fun, Baseball Reference does ERA plus, and Fangraphs does ERA minus, and that's basically taking your ballpark into account. So
okay,
you get a little bit more of a boost if you play at Coors Field. So like a 4.00 ERA might be like a 1.10 ERA plus.
I get it. Yep.
So you're 10% over league average at Coors Field, but 4.00 at Petco might be a 90 ERA plus and 10% below average. So it's saying not all ERAs are created equal, and it kind of adjusts for that. So I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of a cool concept. I don't know how you'd feel about that as somebody who played.
Which I just think it's crazy that there are so many stats for baseball, and really no other professional sport gets broken down the same way that baseball does. I mean, it just amazes me.
Do players like that, or do they hate it? I feel like they kind of hate it, to be honest with you, because they feel like they're being second-guessed all the time.
Yeah, and I can see how it's more, for a player, a negative than a positive, because there's always someone second-guessing you, or they're trying to find a stat that makes you less valuable than you actually are, kind of thing.
Sure.
It's for fans, great. Players, probably not so much.
And it's important to note that, because players are going to have a view and the fans aren't on that level. Like for me, it's as much about wanting to understand as far in depth the things that you guys do. And so knowing how different it is to pitch at Coors Field than it is at Target Field, for instance, it's just part of a deeper understanding. And I think that line gets blurred, though, when people start flippantly saying, oh, this guy sucks. Well, then all of a sudden you're talking about a guy personally.
Yeah.
And so you got to be careful with blurring that lines, because you can't totally rip on a guy. It's one thing to say, oh, this guy hasn't pitched very good, and he pitches in a pitcher's ballpark. I'm worried about how good he'll be in the future. It's another thing to say, this guy bleeping sucks, and he's awful, and start ripping him. So I think there's that fine line too that has to be kept in mind. So anyway, that's it for the second segment. Come back for the third. We're going to answer your questions, and hopefully you can send us some more for next week. So that's it for the second segment. Catch us here on the third one.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back online, along comes this hit show.
Do you want to do this? I will do this.
Gaby, let's not battle our guests.
You're being nice.
Yeah.
In a world full of hit shows, this one's the real deal.
I'm refusing to engage in an argument that doesn't exist.
I'm not arguing.
Twin Cities Hit Show.
Oh my god!
Oh my God! Hey,
See, this is how fights start on pedal pubs. This is exactly.
Throw whatever.
He's just all that
out.
redheaded anger just came up. It's all in his chest right now.
The Twin Cities Hit Show airs live daily, 9:30 to 10:30 on the Alive and Social Network.
Oh, Shannon, welcome to my world.
It's an all Rage Against the Machine breakdown today. 3 spots as we rage into the weekend. What do you think of that?
Time to get weird. It's the weekend, right?
Gets the blood boiling a little bit. Maybe we'll start fighting here in the third segment.
Maybe.
I highly doubt that, though. And my favorite segment is the third segment because we get to be a little bit more interactive. It'll be fun to see how this show evolves, too. Maybe we'll bring in guests and they can just spend the whole time asking you questions and I can just sit and watch.
That'd be awesome.
We'll see how the show evolves based on the listeners. Again, you, the listeners, are very important, and we appreciate everything you guys do for us, which is most importantly listening to the show so that we can try to get sponsors and get that cash flowing in. And anyway, so let's start with a lighter one first. Bethany Jornby, a girl that I went to college with for 1 year, wants to know, do you prefer white cheddar popcorn or caramel corn? I was like, we've all had this dilemma. We've all had this, like, that Christmas tin of popcorn with the cardboard dividers. Then you get the buttered popcorn, you get the caramel corn, and then you usually get the regular cheddar. She throws us a curveball at white cheddar. You know, white cheddar is pretty good. But
I think if it's really fresh caramel corn where it's just made and the caramel's still a little soft,
yep.
I have to go with that. If it's been sitting around for a while, then I have to go with the white cheddar.
Yeah, I basically stole my answer. We can move on from there. Matt Merrick wants to know, he's actually got 2 really good questions here. How far can Cole punt a football?
Oh, God.
That's not a good question.
As if I've done that in the last, 10 years of my life.
That's not part of your, like, Tai Chi or whatever you do on your workout.
Oh, yeah,
you're actually dressed to go to a workout next, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
You're not going to punt a football someplace?
No, that I might have to incorporate that in my workout. We'll see.
I bet you got 40 yards in that, right? Are you a right-footed punter or left-footed?
Yes, right.
I think I am too.
I'm giving myself probably about 30 to 40. I'm not real confident in my punting abilities.
Seems like an opportunity for us to film one of those YouTube videos Patrick's always trying to get us to do, and hopefully the video actually works. It's not windy and shot in the back parking lot of a Buca and suburban Minneapolis. Yeah, Eden Prairie. So he also wants to know if you want to pitch for Champlin next year, and I said don't even bother because I've already got an in with him pitching for a different team.
Oh, so, I have so many buddies who are playing on town ball teams, and
they're just
over
like,
the last
couple
of years.
Man.
Yeah, like you can just come out for one game. That's all right, and it's kind of like, no, I'm not going to just show up for one game when I haven't really played catch at all during the summer. And I'm just going to completely destroy my arm. And
we had a few situations where guys would do that. Austin Malinowski, who the Twins had drafted out of Centennial.
Yeah, I remember that name.
And then he ended up showing up. Now, he played this entire year for the team that's the Continental Diamond Cutters, but I don't think he pitched very much, which was weird. Lefty that could throw in the high 80s when he was right. And he wasn't right. The Twins had released him, and I ended up facing him when he was throwing in the low 80s with like no control. That was terrifying. So
I bet.
We had another guy that the Braves had released, and he'd been taken in like the 12th round or something. He was a lefty throwing pretty good gas. So, yeah, we don't like those guys that come out for one game because they kind of disrupt the flow of, you get used to facing guys that throw 82, 83, or lower. And then some guy comes in throwing 90. You're like, no. You've got different leagues for this stuff. Get
Next,
the heck out of
get
here.
that guy out of here.
Yeah. Patrick Donnelly, the co-host of Twins Tuesday, the highly rated Twins Tuesday podcast that you joined. If I'm not correct.
Last week I think it was.
Well,
yeah,
I was actually out. My wife was sick, so you joined and stepped in for. He wants to know.
Hold on. I got to ask you something. Is your wife 5 years old, where she needs you to stay home with her when she's sick, or did she have Ebola?
She'd had the norovirus before.
Oh,
and then she had like the flu this time. Like she didn't get out of bed for the whole. She had me call in sick for her to work, so it was like
Okay, so she got the double whammy.
I felt
that one's
bad
okay.
though. I went to Monday Night Raw the night before, and then stayed home with her. And I'm like, man, I probably should not have gone downtown without you. I felt horrible. Speaking retroactively,
Well,
as a husband.
you guys are still married. So
Yeah,
it's
so
all right.
it's all good. So anyway, Patrick Donnelly. Meanwhile, back to his question. He wanted to know for Tyler Duffy, who faced Chris Archer the other night, is how much preparation difference is there when you're facing such a good pitcher? Now, I want to go into first of all the good pitchers you faced in your career, and you pitched in relief in a game that Justin Verlander had been throwing. So obviously, pretty much the gold standard there. Do you remember any other really good starters that you faced? Because I have a list of 7 or 8 here.
Yeah, I remember,
including one who's pitching for the Astros tonight at the game that you're going to.
Yep, we talked about that. Casimir, that was my last start in the big leagues.
Yep, and we discussed this yesterday when we were at Buca. Sonny Gray, who you faced in your second to last start.
Oh,
do you remember
that's
any of the
one I
other,
want to forget.
Like, there you go. Do you remember any of the other really good starters? There's one who is actually pitching today, and is
So one of the other kind of most memorable because of the stadium and who I was pitching against and the fact that I had a really good game was Buchholz. And
yep, I got Clay Buchholz on my list. Yep.
And that was at Fenway Park, so that was special.
I'll give you a hint. The other one pitches for the Nationals and signed a huge contract in the offseason.
Was it?
He's got 2 different colored eyes.
Oh, Scherzer?
Yep. So here's the other ones. Jose Quintana, who we mentioned before.
Yep, I pitched. Yep, I remember
Jeremy
that.
Hellickson when he was really rolling well for the Rays.
Mm-hmm. I pitched against him in the minor leagues also, I think. Or maybe I'm blurring that. But
no, I think you're right. So Quintana, Buchholz, Hellickson, Scherzer, Casimir, Gray. And then I put down Brett Anderson, who is he's a pretty good left-handed starter. He pitched for the Dodgers now, but when he was going well, he was a pretty high-profile prospect for the A's. So obviously you have the intel to answer this question is, when you know that you're up against either a Cy Young candidate or at least a guy who's really rolling, do you have to put that out of your mind? Do you prepare differently? Or is it just you've got to pitch your game because literally you don't face that guy, and so it doesn't matter. It's kind of a faceless guy on the other side of the mound. I
think you definitely have to put it out of your mind. It's something that you're obviously aware of because you know who you're pitching against, but it's a situation where you can't focus in more when you're pitching against one of those guys because you never know what kind of start they're going to have. Are they going to have their Cy Young starts, or are they going to have their AAA quality start? So you can't get up for that, and that's one of the things that I always tried to do was just prepare the same every single game and try to pitch to the same level that I could every single game.
And that's kind of what I had suspected you would say. Is just you can psych yourself out pretty easily having to think that you need to throw a no-hitter to beat Max Scherzer when in fact that might be the truth. But you have to train your brain to think otherwise.
And it's something going into one of those starts, you're aware that you might be in for more of a battle than another starting pitcher.
Right.
But again, you can't change anything to fit that situation. You just need to do what you can do.
Alex Cray wants to know, where does Paul Molitor rank among managers, both in the American League and the major leagues? I think he's comfortably top third. Top 10 managers in the game. Yeah, definitely top half. Probably in that 7 to 10 range for me. Small sample size. He still does some funny things with the bullpen. Pinch hit for Buxton last night with Chris Herman. Which
I saw that.
But the changeup, right-handed changeup to a right-handed batter. Boxberger throws a Bugs Bunny changeup. Maybe there's something in the numbers that makes sense. A lefty's going to see that changeup better than a right-handed hitter. Buxton had fanned 4 times. There might be something there, but and maybe this is a bonus second question. Is Molitor in the mix for manager of the year in the American League?
Oh, boy. Getting to the first one, yeah, I would definitely say he's in the top 10. I think trying to pick out who the best manager is.
It's kind of an exercise in futility, isn't it?
Well, I just think it's so stupid because if you have someone who knows absolutely nothing about the game, but they have a team full of superstars that know what they're supposed to be doing in basically every situation.
Feels like you're talking about Matt Williams of the Nationals right now. Actually, that's rude of me to say, but he gets ripped on a lot. But he's got a team full of superstars.
Yeah, but it's kind of one of those things that the manager plays a little bit of a role in what happens during the game, but honestly, he doesn't really play that much of a role. So I would give Molly a top 10 nod in that. But beyond that, I mean, who to pick out for number one? I think it's such a subjective question.
I got a couple theories here. Joe Madden, to me, is the best manager in the game.
He is
and
good.
I think a really great manager could extract 3 to 5 added wins a year. Like Fangraphs, they basically list players based on WAR. Have you ever heard of that?
Wins
above replacement.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's, yep.
So like a really great pitcher might be 4 wins above replacement. It means he's 4 wins better than a AAA average guy. So I think a great manager could be equal to a really good player. But I don't know. I think that's one, just a theory that I can't prove, and 2, it still puts him probably well above every other manager. Now, my other theory is when we're talking about managers of the year, if I were to vote on one, I pull up Baseball Reference, I'm like, okay, so these teams are in first place or second place. Now, who were we not expecting to be first and second? Okay, they're a manager. So Molitor's at the forefront there. I think between this last series and this next series and the Twins manager, Molitor, you're looking at probably the 3 frontrunners in the American League. That's A.J. Hinch for the Astros, Kevin Cash for the Rays, who filled in for Madden, and they haven't skipped a beat. They're right around 500. I believe, 1 game under 500 with no help. I mean, it's been Chris Archer and nobody in that rotation. The injuries have piled up all over. And then in the National League, you give it to Madden because he's got the Cubs at 70-plus wins. In fact, I tweeted this the other day. There were 4 teams in baseball that had 70 or more wins, and 3 of them were the NL Central. I mean, it's amazing, that kind of balance of power. So, but when it comes to picking manager of the year, I mean, you're not going to pick Matheny from the Cardinals because you expect the Cardinals to be good. But is it really manager of the year, or is it just, hey, what manager overachieved?
Yeah, and the thing that the place where I see Molitor bringing a lot of added value that might not play out in the field right now is on the player development side. That team is so young, and he is so experienced and does a great job talking to them on a level that the average player can understand, because his level, when he starts getting into stuff, is just way beyond so many people and the things that he sees and picks up. But his ability to talk to them in a way that they can understand and make and turn it into an impact situation, whether it's that week, the following week, or in that month, I think that's where he brings a lot of value.
I think he's done that for Aaron Hicks most specifically. He's turned Aaron Hicks into the player he was supposed to be. Brock Dahlke had a fight with somebody on Twitter, and he said that he was fighting over this. Pedro Martinez said on TV that the Twins are top 3 in fundamentals. Is that insane? And I kind of think, yeah. I don't think this is a fundamentally sound Tom Kelly ball club. This is a team that's fine, league average when it comes to fundamentals, but they don't stand out as a team that does, quote unquote, the little things like the national prognosticators seem to think.
And boy, once you said that, I've been thinking about that the whole time. I think you have to be fundamentally sound to a certain level in order to be successful.
Yeah, not
in the
like
major
the Orioles
leagues.
the other day where they kicked it around and the Twins won that game in extras.
Yeah,
because Manny Machado was playing shortstop.
Exactly. But this isn't like you're talking about, the typical small ball Twins team that we're kind of used to. They're hitting a couple more home runs. They got a little more power. There's a lot more doubles and stuff like that, where they're not as much relying on a guy getting a walk, then stealing second, then getting bunted to third, then someone hitting a deep fly ball to get him in. That's that. This team is not the quintessential Twins team that we're used to in the past, where small ball gets them all their wins. And so I can see what he's talking about, but I just don't know if I'm 100% buyer on it.
I mean, it's Pedro, so you're just kind of like, okay, whatever Pedro says rolls. So
go with it.
Yeah. Nick Ladwig wants to know what's the biggest key to the Twins' success in the last week. It's been, for me, timeliness.
Exactly. Everything coming together. The bullpen tightening up, run production, starting rotation has kind of everything's been tightened up.
And they won big, they won small, they won ugly, they won pretty.
That's what you got to do.
It was wins. And that's all you're asking for at the end of the day is wins.
Yep.
And so that it's a simple question, not to shortchange Nick, but that's where I'm at too. Patrick Fahey wants to know, we discussed Santana to the bullpen. He wants to know thoughts on a Barrios call-up. Honestly, I think you got to do it. And now, here's the issue. Jeremy Nygaard of Twins Daily had done a thing where Barrios, if you bring him up now, you lose a year of free agency on him in the back end, and it's like his age 27 and 28 season. Like, if a guy is as good as he's supposed to be at 27, 28, he's getting a crazy contract. So you do have to keep that in mind.
Exactly. I don't see them calling him up, and the reason why I say that is because I forgot where I heard this from, but Molly saying something to the effect that in September, if they're still in contention, he's going to be calling up guys that maybe have a little more experience that can impact them on a day-to-day basis.
Kenny Vargas?
Yeah, and that they're not going to call up guys to get them experience.
Right.
And so that's why I just don't see them calling up Barrios, because unless they decide to move Santana out of the rotation and he's going to fill that spot, I really would be shocked if they call him up to go in the bullpen, because he's not used to that. That would be bad, I think. Or who knows? Maybe they're going to go with a 6-person rotation. But I just don't see that happening either.
Yeah, especially with Phil Hughes' return somewhere on the horizon. We're led to believe it does get crowded again. You're not going to bring him up to send him back down. So I don't think I really see it either. But if they do, it has to be now. I mean, it has to be within the next trip around the rotation, I think. So this is a fun one from Andrew Renshin, a friend of mine on Twitter and Facebook. And this might make you think a little bit. If you could create your all-time Twins create a player with
I saw this one.
Legs, arm, batter's eye, hitting ability, and personality,
all right,
which player would you make up? And I cheated. I also said we're going to do pitcher too.
Okay.
So what do you want to do first?
Do
do pitcher first?
No. Let's do position player, because I was thinking about
Sure,
that.
okay.
I wasn't even thinking about the player.
I'm throwing you a curveball, and you got to try hit it.
I'm going to go with...
Who's speed?
I think I'm going to go with Buxton's speed.
Okay.
Because I don't really know who you're going to come up with who is really any faster than him. I mean, you might be able to say Revere.
I was going to go with like Luis Rivas just to mess with people. Or Christian Guzman or Jordan Schaefer.
Okay, and
he
then...
had 98 speed on the video game this year. Speaking of...
Wow.
That was my hashtag. Every time Jordan Schaefer did something good, I'd hashtag 98 speed. People hated it because Jordan Schaefer was bad. Anyway, so
so we got that.
I'll
for
go with
speed.
Jordan Schaefer just to mess with people.
Sounds good.
So you got arm, throwing arm in the field.
I'm going to go with either Kirby Puckett,
okay,
or not many people I think are going to remember this, but Matt Carson. He was up real briefly in, I think, the 2012 season. He was a guy who kind of bounced around the minor leagues, had some calls up here and there, but he had a ridiculous arm.
I would have never had any idea.
From the outfield. I think in just the couple games he was out, he threw out 2 guys trying to turn a single into a double, and I mean, he would just throw lasers out there.
I think I remember like Bernardo Brito having a really good arm, but give me Kadyr's arm for right field.
Yeah, he had a really good one too.
And again, he wasn't a great fielder out there, but whose fielding ability would you take? We didn't have that listed, but whose raw fielding ability would you have out there? I think you probably could go with like a young Torrey Hunter.
I think I might go with Ben Revere.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remember anyone who was a constant on SportsCenter top 10.
Give me J.J. Hardy. I'm gonna go a little off the radar. I'm gonna get J.J. Hardy. Instincts. He wasn't exactly athletic, but really good instincts, really good arm.
All right.
I'll take J.J. Hardy's fielding ability. Batter's eye. Who else are you gonna pick?
Gotta go Joe.
Yeah, gotta go Joe there. I'm not even sure if Aaron Hicks might be a distant second. He takes tons of walks. Hitting ability, average or power, you can choose. I mean, if you take average, it's probably Joe.
If you're going average, you got to go MVP season Joe. I mean, they're...
What do you have, 347 1 year, 365 1 year?
Yeah, just ridiculous. Power...
Is it Miguel Sano?
Oh, I was thinking...
Morneau?
Well, I was thinking Big Poppy's power now.
Yeah. Is that cheating?
Yeah.
I take Sano's power. I think he's
you're
80,
right. You're right.
80 power on the 2080. So you go there. Let's see what else is there. And then personality. I've heard great stories about Kirby Puckett's clubhouse personality. Again, he did some shady stuff off the field.
Whatevs. Yeah. That was after career, so we're not talking about that.
I've heard he was a really good, inclusive clubhouse guy.
Puckett? Yeah, I'm going to go with Puckett or Torrey.
Yep, you have to go that route too. And again, some people don't like Torrey too. And I don't think players care much about what guys say off the field. Do you think that's a big thing?
No, I mean, well,
and we'll discuss that more another time too, because I've been wanting to ask you.
No matter who you are, there are people who are going to like you and dislike you. So what?
All right, so for a pitcher, we'll try to keep it simple. Whose velocity would you like to have? I'm going to go off the rails with all these just to mess with people.
I'm going to go with
go like Jim Hoey.
Oh, he did have a pretty good one. I was actually going to go with Alex Meyer on that.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Juan Murillo. He threw gas, and he pitched for the Twins for like 2 weeks in like 2010 or something, or 2009.
I don't even remember
it was further back than that, actually. He just threw absolute gas. He threw like 100, and he gave up a bomb to Jason Bartlett when Bartlett was playing for the Rays at Metrodome.
Funny.
And so it was just like, yeah, that was it for him. But he threw like 100 miles an hour. As far as command or control, I know they're not interchangeable in the mind of a pitcher, but
I think Phil Hughes. I mean, with his season last season, and walking like 10 guys or something, unbelievably ridiculous.
I'll go with Brad Radke.
That
or
was
Kevin Slowey.
Radke was my second one that I was thinking about. Slowey's a good one too. Yeah, he's
absolutely fantastic with that. So let's see. There's velocity and there's command. What else would you want in a pitcher? Mound presence, maybe.
Oh, I don't even know how to.
How about mannerisms? You want like the Joe Nathan horse mannerism, or the Mike Pelfrey where he does
cough?
Yep,
he just coughs constantly out there.
Stews around out there.
No, I cannot go with that. I got to go with someone calm and collected. I'm gonna go with Santana, Johan.
Yeah, he was kind of nasty. I'll go with 2006 Francisco Liriano.
Okay, yeah.
And I think he had this thing where he would look right into the camera, and he knew exactly what was going on.
Of course he did.
The guy was like 12-3 with like a 2-point-some ERA, and was just dicing everybody up. It was just insane. And so let's see, we got command, we got velocity, we got mound presence. What else are we missing? I think that's pretty much it. Fielding, you could go with fielding, but
no one cares about that. We're not talking about that. Yeah, no one cares about how pitcher fields.
No, so that I think we created our.
There we go. We got them. I don't know what their names are going to be, but we got them.
Paul Pleiss wants to know, if the Twins manage to host a wild card game, is it infinitely better being the number 2 wild card? Oh, is hosting it better than being the number 2 from a fan perspective? It's kind of a coin flip. Or would hosting be that important?
I think anytime that you have kind of that home field advantage, you have an advantage, and so I mean I'm just going to go with that.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think there's a lot of teams you don't want to face, and I don't think the odds of them hosting are very good. But the other issue is you end up facing the Rangers with Cole Hamels or something. You don't want to do that either. So I think you'd rather face the Yankees, even though they blasted you, because they just don't have a pitcher that's going to shut you down.
There we go.
And so to bring it full circle, I just want to say welcome back to contention to the Minnesota Twins.
Yay! Yeah. Clap all around.
And so that's basically where we're at. That's it. That's a wrap for our new producer, Aaron. Maybe we'll get him on the air here one of these days. We'll see about that. And he's donning the Twins cap, so he's obviously in the spirit. For Cole DeVries, Brandon Ward here. Thanks for joining us for episode number 6 on the breakdown. Hopefully we can bring you episode number 5 very soon. Thanks for joining us, and goodbye.